Assalamu alaikum. Dear students, how are you? I hope you all are fine with the grace of Almighty Allah. I'm Muhammad Khalid, and today we are going to talk about week 16, lesson 31 and 32. It is the first video for the week 16. And our today's topic is regional and international diplomacy of Pakistan. Dear students, in the previous week 15, we talked about foreign policy. That a foreign policy is a complete, nicely chiseled, demographic, vibrant schema, route map that the expert of the country devise and act to meet the interest of the nation or the country, within the country and outside the country, mean with the other relationship countries on the other soils. Since a country in the international community is like us living in a city, in a village, in the street or locality, and every individual has some rights and responsibility, and so they have the needs thereby to live up peacefully. One have to develop good relations with their neighbors. Fine. Sometimes when we are out of our house and going to live for some time, we ask our neighbors to please protect our property. Often, when in time of some problem or emergency, we need help, we may ask our neighbors to give us something or to provide us certain utilities or grocery items. Often we run short. So, a country in the international community is similar to us in our local life. And the relationships of the nations are executed under a national plan, fine, and their relationship settle that whether our country is going to progress or going to be alone in the world. I would simply cover these aspects as I covered in the previous session 15 from the Pakistan point of view, that we have to see that what are the compulsions of Pakistan. As we came to know that there are certain determinants of the relationships or determinants of the foreign policy. Those determinants have to be very important to be kept in mind while designing the foreign policy. The very first one is integrity of the state. Number two, needs of the state, ideology, capacity, resources, geographical locations, advantages from the other country, and all these points have to be kept in mind. Let me ask a question, that why we are not going to accredit, accept Israel, whereas we have accepted India as our friends. This is a very interesting question. Well, there are some delicacies that developing relations with India, however, Indians are very, Indian policy, I'm not talking about Indians as a whole, I'm talking about the agenda or the foreign policy of India is not to accept Pakistan and to gobble it and make is a greater India. But our foreign policy have to be develop good relations with India, despite we have been fighting for years and years that we cannot align India, we cannot exclude India because neighbors are important part and they cannot be excluded. They have stakes in the territory. So in subcontinent, India is a major stakeholder. So is Pakistan. So thereby all the nations in subcontinent and in Asia, whether they are hostile to one another, they are friendly to one another, they have to sit on the table, they have to talk to one another, they have to devise a policy where they keep the relation elastic, they keep a room for upcoming negotiations. It is really important. Let me clear this concept that in the same region subcontinent we have India as a hostile nation, and we always keep fighting with India because we cannot accept and their demands. Whereas in the same region, almost China in the east is our friendly country. Right from the inception of China till now, we have developed very good relations, and they are exemplary in the international world. Fine. Despite this, that Indians have been fighting with us, still we want to develop sustain good relations. You just open up the speech of all the new leaders hold office in Pakistan, either Prime Minister or President or others. They do mention India in the foreign policy that we are welcoming India. We welcome India on the negotiation table, and we want to resolve the issues in subcontinent, especially of Kashmir, so that this vibrant area region may prolong into the road, epoch on the road of prosperity. Well, these international diplomacies, these international foreign policies are very important for all the countries living on this world. Well, a very interesting scheme and a revolution in the foreign policy came at two distinct incidents. The detail I have discussed in the previous lectures. First World War, Second World War, and the Cold Era. First World War, Second World War, and the Cold Era. In the First World War, you find that half of the world was divided between Japanese, Germans, Turkish, whereas the other end was Americans and European allies, along with the large areas India and Australia. What happened? Turkey met with a worst defeat, so were the Japanese, and those nations had to leave most of their territories. Only from Ottoman Empire, almost 56 countries emerged. Otherwise, they were just as one country, the Ottoman Empire. Similarly, Japanese had to leave most of their territories in China and other regions in Russia, plus the four East Asian countries like Malaysia or Indonesia. This made a huge number of nations, flags, emerged on the planet. Okay. In the Second World War, a distinct thing happened that the superpower of the time, England, that was defeated, defeated not in sense of war, but defeated that Second World War had so weakened England that it couldn't consist control over its foreign territories like India, Australia, and Canada, and South Africa, and many other countries. You find that there are so many countries born out of this. Simply, six countries born like Pakistan, India, Nepal, Bangladesh, Maldives, Bhutan, Burma. So these countries of the SAARC, they emerged from the partition of India 1947 or after. Well, now the third distinct incident happened when Russian Revolution succeeded and America and Russia came one to one. One was leading the communist bloc like Russia and China and others, whereas the other were leading the other bloc. Fine. So the nation was divided, the world globe was divided into these two countries. So some countries were being supported by Russia, some were being supported by America. And Pakistan interestingly fall into the bloc of Americans and left Russia. And that our move to the foreign policy gave us a great dent because India in 1948 joined Russia and Russia remained at the back of India all the time, whereas we, when fall to the American bloc, were defeated. We entered in Sito and Santo, clear, and finally we gained nothing, whereas Russia was able to dissect Pakistan into two pieces in 1971. So this is the importance of the regional and international foreign policy, that your foreign policy decides the nation, the fate of your nation. Thereby, in the year 2001, after the 9/11, the world is not the same. There are so many challenges that Pakistan is facing at the national and international front. Thereby, in the previous session, we had simply talked about the foreign policy and its constituent elements, whereas now we have also viewed the relationship with the important nations, whereas in this uh, chapter we will talk about the regional diplomacy or the diplomacy of the international organizations, clear, in terms of UNO, SAARC, NATO, C2 and CENTO, ASEAN, fine. So these are the biggest corporations in the world. These corporations also do impact on the world as a collective voice. Fine. So I hope this that you have understood the first initial background of this week 16 video 1. Fine. In the next video we'll talk about the incident one by one. Thank you.